The time is now 5:30 p.m. The date is September the 19th. We will call to order the mayor and council meeting for the city of Statesville. We will have our invocation and pledge of allegiance by Council Member Paulette Chambers.
The prayer for this evening will be the Our Father's prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item 3, as we understand it, there is no recognitions of public presentations.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Public comments in regards to agenda items number 4. Is anyone signed up for that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then we'll move down to agenda item 5, consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the approval of the minutes for our September the 5th council minutes, executive session, as well as our September the 12th public hearings at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Agenda item 5B is consideration of a motion to approve the due date of December 20th, 2023 for the city of Statesboro property taxes. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing, consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2023-43, a resolution setting the millage rate for ad valorem property taxes for the 2023 calendar year for the city of Statesboro. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Penny, if you will, give us some insight.
Mayor, members of the council, and to the public, what I'd like to do is give you a presentation and talk about the city of Statesboro fiscal year 2024 annual operating budget. So if you will focus your attention on the screens, the presentation will appear before you. When we put together our budget this year, our objective, several objectives. One was to retain and recruit exceptional employees, grow our tax base, and we had an emphasis on public safety. So when we look at our FY 2024 budget highlights, the budget has grown about almost 25%, total expense increase, less transfers. So when you look at the screen, what you see is for fiscal year 2023, our budget was basically $73,247,776. For this year, which is we are already in fiscal year 2024, our budget is $91,396,010. When you see that difference, what makes up that budget includes the general fund, all of our utility funds, but it also includes T-SPLOS, it also includes SPLOS, and SPLOS from several years dating back as far as 2013. What this budget also represents is our capital improvement plan. So you see that big fluctuation, that's because we've taken all those numbers and put them together. The other thing it also includes is we received $12 million from the federal government, the American Rescue Plan, and those funds are included in this budget as well. The budget that is impacted by the tax increase is the general fund budget. When you look at the number below, you see our general fund expenses increased 8.2% from fiscal 2023 to fiscal 2024. Basically, the general fund budget is $20 million for FY 2023 is $20,604,853. And for fiscal year 2024, the increase goes to $22,288,545. Basically, the majority of our employees are located in the general fund. We have 330 employees. All of them are not located in the general fund, but they make up a big portion of it. So 65%, and you'll hear this from me again, about 65% of the general fund budget is all related to personnel and fringe benefits. So when you look at talking about the general fund and just general government, in our budget, we want to highlight that our compensation and benefits. This year, we adjusted our pay plan by 5%. That means all city employees received a 5% pay increase. And basically, folks, what we're dealing with a tough labor market in Statesboro, but this is not just a situation that is just to impact Statesboro. It is a nationwide challenge to get good talent. And so we need to be able to make sure that we can maintain our talent. And so the increase was recommended by our consultant, Condra and Associates. But when you look at the screen, you'll also see that our city employees, just as you have dealt with inflation in our country. And in 2021, we're looking at a 7% increase, and in 2022, 6.5% increase, and in 2023, 3%. Now that 3% is still subject to change because we're still in 2023, and what we're seeing is increase in gas prices. So that 3% might actually be higher. We're going to pray it stays at 3%. And then what our council has been willing to do is also reward our employees for outstanding performance. And this is the third year of continuing pay for performance. And so what happens is all city employees are evaluated on their anniversary date, and depending upon their performance, they could receive anywhere from 0 increase, 2% up to 4%, just depending upon how they perform. So current and future opportunities, we want to make sure that we position Statesboro for growth in the region. Growth is coming to Statesboro, Bullock County, Bryan County, Effingham County, Chatham County. It is coming all around us. Meta. In fact, Meta just had a big plant that was announced about 2 weeks ago going into that community. And so whether we want it or not, the Meta plant on Highway 16, 8,100 jobs is impacting our community. And so our challenge as an employer is to make sure that we keep our pay plan up to date, because if we don't do that, we know that the Hyundai plant will hire our employees. In fact, we've already lost an employee to the Hyundai plant. So, concerns and unknowns. When you look at our community, our tax rate is based upon taxable property. And in our community, we have nearly 25% of the total assessed value for real and personal property is non-taxable. And I'll say it like this. We love Georgia Southern, but Georgia Southern, all of those buildings, they're not taxable. We love our hospital, but it's not taxable. We love our churches, but they're not taxable. We love our school buildings, they're not taxable. So 25% of those properties are not taxable in our community. And so that's part of our challenge. And then the other part is that we are dealing with a tough labor market. And we expect to be dealing with a tough labor market for next couple of years. And so when I say that, the city government is dealing with that, but I also know that the private sector folks and everyone that's in this room is dealing with labor market challenges. So what I'm sharing with you at this point is the property tax millage rate. And if you look at, and this was the millage rate for 2023, and the yellow is what the millage rate for the city of Statesboro is as of right now 7.308. And so you see we're in the lower edge of it, and then what you'll see is in the orange, that's Bullock Board of Education, and that 8.263 is that's their newly adopted. No, that's not their newly adopted rate. That's the Board of Education's rate. And then if you look further down, you'll see Bullock County at 11.350. So our rate is a lot lower, but again, that just gives you a frame of reference. So again, this is from 1994 to 2023. You'll see in the era of 1999 and 2000, our millage rate was above 9 mills. And over time it came down, and you see to the far right, to my right, the point at 2023 at 7.308. So the current local property millage rate, Bullock County, their adopted rate is 12.85. Board of Education, their new rate is 8.478. The proposed millage rate for the city of Statesboro is 9.212. I will say to you that the 9.212, 1 mill for the city of Statesboro will raise about $900,000. So again, you just see a bar chart, and to the my far right, is the 2024, and the expected revenue from a millage rate increase would yield us just under $9 million, about $8.9 million for the general fund budget. So let me talk about general fund highlights. Again, I mentioned to you earlier, the city of Statesboro, we don't make anything. So what's the most important resource that we have? The most important resource that we have is our human capital. Those are our employees that work for the city, that provide the services that you receive each and every day. Those are the police officers, the firefighters, solid waste employees, just general government employees. That's our human capital. But in this budget, in the general fund budget, 65% of that is all about personnel. It's funds the personnel, their salaries and fringe benefits. So when you look at our budget for the general fund, you remember it was a little bit more than $22 million. The increase in this year's budget, $1.2 million is for salaries. That's for employees. That's for the across-the-board adjustment. That's also paid for performance. The small business recruiter. Small business recruiter just started in January of this year, but 1 full year funding meant an increased cost of about $50,000. Debt service. Increased debt service is about $50,000. Street contractor labor, about $77,000. And what we did there, instead of adding employees, we contracted. So we contracted with the private sector to provide that service. And if we had hired employees to do it, the cost actually would have been a little bit higher. We also had parks contract labor to help clean our parks that we maintain at $60,000. And I mentioned a pay plan, compensation study of $55,000, and then just some small tools, $30,000 for the police department. So when we highlight the general fund and the fire fund, if you remember, I told you that we collect about $8.9 million in property taxes. So the police department budget is $10,707,000. So we don't even, in property taxes, we do not collect enough funds to actually fund the police department. So then we also have the transfer to the fire department. And so there's $2 million that comes out of the general fund to fund the fire department. So in the fire department, in the past 2 years, the city council has approved additional firefighters. And say it this way, in 2019, we were providing fire service to about 16 square miles of the city of Statesboro and 96 square miles of the fire district with 48 firefighters. Okay? Today, based on the actions of the mayor and council, we have added 21 positions in the fire department as firefighters. A few years ago, they added 9 firefighters, and you'll see later we were able to get a SAFER grant that added 12 more. So we have been able to hire 21 additional firefighters, and so we've gone from 48 to 69. So what does that mean? It might not mean a lot to you, but what it means is when our equipment rolls out of the fire station, under the old staffing pattern, we did not have enough people on the fire truck so that if you had a fire at your house, when they arrived at your house, if you had an interior fire, they could not do an interior attack with only 2 people on the truck. When you go with a full complement, you have 4 people on the truck, you can immediately begin an interior attack because you can send 2 in, you keep 2 out. It's a safety issue. So 2 in, 2 out. So with the additional firefighters, we are able now to adequately get in and fight fires and staff our trucks. The other thing we did is we added dispatchers in our communication center for fireground management, so that when we send a firefighter, it's one thing to have people fighting fires, but we also have to have good communication. So we added people in that position. So 5-year staffing, general fund and fire fund. The general fund personnel is increased by 8 positions from FY 2020 to FY 2024. We've added 1 position in human resources. We've added 1 position for our village builders program, 6 positions in the police department. And then the fire fund personnel is increased by 25 positions, 4 dispatch positions and 21 firefighters. So when you look at our property tax calculation for a house of $200,000, and when you look at that number, I'm gonna use this because it's a little bit bigger for me. Under our current rate, and what happens in the state of Georgia, we are required by, and I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail. You remember I gave you a rate of 7.308, but the equivalent rate, the revenue neutral rate for that 7.308 is 6.362. That should yield us the same amount of revenue under our current property values. So with that, if council adopted 6.362 for someone owning a home of $200,000, you'd be talking about $496.24. But at the recommended rate of 9.212 on the same property, you're talking about tax bill of $718.54. Basically, $222 additional a year for our property taxes. That is equal to about $18 a month for those increased taxes. So when we look at the property tax increase, and the current millage rate, again, is 7.308, and state law requires adjustment to be revenue neutral, which is a millage rate of 6.362. The rollback rate is not sufficient to balance the fiscal year 2024 budget as adopted. The millage rate of 9.212 will provide the revenue needed to operate during fiscal year 2024. And so what you see is the current, under the 7.308, it would yield a $6,444,452. At 6.362, with the new property values, and you can see that the net digest was $973 million, it would yield us just about almost $6.2 million in taxes. The proposed millage rate of 9.212 would yield us $8,965,299.55. So what does that mean? And the number sounds really huge, To go from 6.362, which we have to tell you by law, to 9.212 is equal to 44.8% increase. That's in the millage rate, but that does not compute in actual money collected, because the general fund budget is, again, $20 million. So it's going to be $22 million for FY 2024. So we're talking about about $2.8 million additional revenue. If that 44%, if that translated into actual dollars received, we'd be talking about a lot more than $2 million. But the millage rate is a 44% increase, but the actual revenue received is not 44%. In summary, the city's budget is financially sound. We have strong reserves. We have good growth in property values. We are seeing new investment. And I say this to our mayor and council, they have taken care of the city's most valuable resources, and that's our employees. In summary, question always comes, could we balance the city's budget without increasing the millage? And the answer I would tell you is yes. It would require the city to use $2.1 million of our fund balance. And last year, 2022, the city used $600,000 of fund balance. 2023, we're still closing out the books on 2023. We used over $700,000 of fund balance. That's $1.3 million. So balancing with the $2.1 million would further erode the fund balance and the emergency fund. Our fund balances, those are funds that we use for emergency purposes. Those are rainy day funds. And in 2009, 2008, the city was in a position that the fund balance in the general fund was about $90,000. That is not acceptable. So the thing about fund balance is once you spend that fund, it is non-recurring. We then have to work to build those funds back up. And so yeah, we could balance the budget using fund balance. But the millage rate increase would allow the city to cover the increased personnel costs. It would replace the fund balance that was used last year. And it prepares the city for a pay plan increase in FY 2025. And so the fund balance, and so again, planning for next year, fund balance would be maybe needed to absorb the implementation of the new pay plan. And I say this to our mayor and council. What we don't want to do is recommend a tax increase this year and then have to come back and do another one next year. What we're trying to do is receive the funds that we need this year, plan for next year so that when we implement the new pay plan, and we have to pay our people. If we don't pay our people, they will leave. They will go other places. They have choices. They will go to Hyundai. They will go to Hyundai suppliers. We don't have any other choice if we want to provide good services to you as our citizens. So in summary, the city must continue to expand our tax base. And I'll tell you, we're seeing that happen. You look around, you see building going on all around our community. You go down on Lanier, you see a park has just rebuilt a store on Lanier and Chandler. They're going to open a new store on Northside. They're going to open a new store on 67. That's tax base, y'all. You go out 80, you see new construction going up. That's tax base. The city has voluntary annexation that adds to our tax base. The city has approved over 600 townhomes. We need to get them built. That adds to our tax base. New commercial and retail development helps to grow tax base and revenue. Council has approved 2 single-family subdivisions currently under construction, and that could positively impact growth in the tax base. And on September 5th, the planning board approved 370 new housing units, townhomes and single families. That's tax base, but all of those things have to be built. And so with that, Mayor, I will conclude by simply saying we've got to hit it in the right direction. And over time, that tax rate will roll back. When that tax base grows, you'll be able to roll that back because you have a larger tax base to draw from. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. All right, is there anyone here to speak for this request? Is there here anyone to speak against the request?
Yes.
As you come forward, please state your name and whether you live in the city of Statesboro or not.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm Cassandra Michael. I own rental property in the city, as I said before when I spoke before against this property tax increase. The citizens and stakeholders of Statesboro need your help. I'm concerned that this proposed tax increase is going to be passed with very little concern for what will happen to the people carrying the burden and the impact it will have on all of those who enjoy Statesboro for living, eating, and entertainment. Have each of you resource. The people are being told that everything will be okay because we can address this again next year. We'll roll it back next year. But you've already increased it, so it's not really a true rollback at that point, Mr. Kenny. At the end of your presentation, yes, sir, you did. This is the same as giving people a water gun and telling them to fight an out-of-control fire. People are already worried and wondering how they're going to make the county tax payment, their county tax payment. Bullitt County Tax Commissioner Leslie Dale Akins posted on Facebook today that the county is being overwhelmed with calls from citizens wanting to know about their tax bills and exactly how much they're going to owe the county. Please do not burden the taxpayers even more with a city increase. The good of 33,000 or so citizens is much more important than 330 city employees that keep being touted as the most precious resource. What about the people who cannot find a place to rent any longer because of lack of rentals or increasing rent costs? How about those who are struggling to pay their bills already? Are you going to tell them that this is about to get even more worse, or will you blame greedy business owners and landlords as the problem? It is so easy to spend someone else's money. We are told that if the millage rate does not increase, it will eat into the reserves, the city's savings account. That is only if you decide, if I may finish, I'm like, cut spending. Please be like real families and businesses and make cuts to the budget. This should be a budget issue, not a millage rate increase issue. Go back to the essentials in public safety and build back from there until you get to the point that you do not increase taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will, if there's anyone that speaks against the request. Please state your name and whether you're a citizen of the city or not.
Issue is, before we were given 3 minutes instead of 2, so okay, just wanted to make that clear. My name's Lawton Sack. I am a citizen of Statesboro, Georgia. I've lived here my entire life, and I can tell you that we are in a huge crisis at this point. Had an employee come to my office last night trying to find a place to live here in Statesboro. The cheapest he could find for a 3-bedroom unit was $1,800. If you do the math on that, they say you need to make at least 3 times that rent to make that happen. Our average household income in Bullitt County is right at $50,000. The math no longer works. We've got a huge problem, and now is not the time to burden our citizens even further with this. And I know you can look at it as just the city of Statesboro, but for those that live here, there is over a 30 millage rate total between the county, the Board of Education, and the city of Statesboro. That is going to have a direct impact on everything, every single price, everything that's sold, everything that's done in the city. To make that decision in isolation. But when you take everything as a whole, increase prices at the grocery store, high rental rates if you can find something to rent, these people behind me are going to hurt if you pass this here tonight. And I know it's easy, and I've said it repeatedly, you can make the math work on paper, but when it's
have to make decisions about their family for the next year and beyond, you're going to have a direct impact upon them. When their Christmas gifts are more than they were last year because of increased cost and higher taxes, do the right thing. This is not the right year to do it. So stand strong and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking? Please say your name, whether you're.
Certainly. Time will go up before I speak there. Huh? Good evening, Mayor, council members, all. I'm not really speaking against the tax rate because Manager Perry did an excellent presentation about the budget increase and there is a need for it. I understand you need that money. My main concern is that the low income is in the state district too, where I live. As the gentleman before me stated, it's an issue, paying the bills. I think maybe we can consider something as to, like the county used to do, we can do a provision as based on the income, $200,000 house increase. I get it. 200 bucks a year, maybe not an issue. But when you're living in a $50,000 house and you go up $200 a year, it's a problem. Then you may consider whether you sell your house or you end up going to foreclosure. So I've asked the mayor and the council to consider something where we can protect the low income folks, especially those who are renting, because when if the rent goes up, correction, tax goes up, the landlords are going to do the paper game also. It's going to increase the rent, and that's going to force people to be out looking for a home. There's at least, I don't know how many out there, but I think 5 people have been displaced already because of rent increase. Houses have been demolished, no place to stay. Again, all the fact because of and taxes have not been increased yet. Who have no idea what's going to happen when the taxes are increased. So that is something to do, or maybe want to do a little bit more research, not one of the FDRs, so we can figure out how can we protect the folks who are living on a budget, a true budget, as they say, folks who get a Social Security check and they got an increase of 2%, not a 5% increase. Yeah, that's a good thing. And the next question is about the police department has a budget of $10 million. I'm thinking, how much do the police department collect in fines and municipal court fees? Could you share that with us? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Sorry. Anyone else speak against?
Hi, my name is Melissa Dixon, and I've lived here in Statesboro for about 26 years. I've never spoken here before. Mr. Penny, excellent job. And your numbers actually are low. They're low. Be enough. They don't make enough. We are one of the lowest paying counties here. They don't make enough. But the reason why is, we're low here. So the problem that I'm seeing is I think your numbers are still too low. And it's us residents who are going to help you build that up, okay? Our employees do matter. They matter a lot. They matter too. So how can we make both people happy? That's your job, to figure it out. You know what I mean? You have a tough job. You really do. I won't want to be in your shoes. So I'm not here to necessarily complain, tell you, oh, you guys suck. No. You guys do a great job. You really do. And honestly, your numbers are low. So my concern is that we're going to have a breaking point. You want the growth to come in. I personally don't. I like a little, what they call Mayberry little town. That's why I stayed here when my husband, when he was alive, he built the hospital here. I raised my 2 boys here because we don't have bars and strip clubs on every corner. We have churches on every corner because we were a dry county, and I appreciate that from all the councilmen because we have a university here. And I feel as though we have a responsibility as parents to look out for those university kids. And then we turn this into, I call it a wet county now. We let alcohol come in, making it easy for them to turn into alcoholics, if you ask me. So that's such a turnoff. But my problem is yeah, your numbers are low and something's going to break. You can't have both where you want all this growth and then we yet are going to pay for it. You know what I mean? Times are getting tougher for people. They really are. Rent is extremely high. and they're dumps. So I don't know what your answer is, but we just gotta figure it out, instead of always coming to the people for money.
Anyone else speak against? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll open it up for council discussion.
So we'll do first. I am for the millage increase. Take away the emotion of our employees, which is what make the city run. Take the emotion out of it, just being pragmatic. The growth is on the way, we can't stop it, it's gonna be a lot of it. And we can't stop it, we can only manage it. From my point of view, from sitting up here and having the power that I do, this is the best, but for the best that we can do for the money right now for us, for what we can do. It will increase the standards of living here in town. We will put more roads in, more sewer, police, fire. If you think about the hurricanes we've had over the last 12 years since I've been here, the roads are always open the next month. That's because of city employees. And if we don't do this now to help them, we are going to lose hundreds of years of experience who kept the roads open that night. And we'll do so the next time, which could be 3 more times this year. This is the best that I can do with the power that I'm given. And I hate to do it, but I'm for it and I'll vote for it. Thank you.
Any further discussion by council?
Nobody likes the raises in taxes, but my issue is public safety. That is a big issue. And as a representative of District 2, there's a lot of public safety concerns in District 2. And we don't have enough police officers to appropriately manage the streets. So it's either we get more police officers to manage the street, or we're gonna have crime galore. No, I don't want to raise taxes, but I am in favor of raising it. So we don't have to come back year after year, keep raising taxes. And you come into these public hearings saying that you don't want taxes raised. Do it now and get it over with. It's tough. And I understand it's tough. But for District 2, the crime is it's growing daily. And we have to do something now to stop it. And if growth is coming in, just imagine what's going to happen to crime. And if you have nobody to manage it, they're going to be breaking in homes and stealing. And who are you going to call? Who are you going to call if you don't have police officers? So I am for the increase of the millage rate for that specific purpose.
Any further discussion by council?
Yes, your next, Mr. Boyd. When we had our budget hearings and we looked at all the things the city needed to do, and we heard some of what you've heard tonight, we all agreed we got to keep the city going. We got to have all these services that we got to provide, and this is what it's going to cost to do it. And it's hard to raise taxes, but we need to. And I think everybody was sitting up here nodding, saying that's what we got to do. But what I didn't think about then, that I've been hearing a whole lot about since, is it's not just the $18 a month if you happen to live in a $200,000 house. It's like what Lawton was saying. The citizens of Statesboro are being hit by inflation. Your groceries are costing more. We don't have enough housing to go around. David, others are trying to build them as fast as they can, but we don't have enough places to live. I mean, I know it's hard. And so, yes, I'm concerned that this is not, I'm not an accountant, I don't have a lot of background in this stuff, and I rely on city staff who are telling me conservative practice is you need 25% of your budget minimum in reserve to deal with emergencies. And the city has a lot of things that come in later in the year. You gotta pay the bills and pay the salary before that expense, that income comes in. So you gotta have reserves. You gotta have at least 25% reserves. But we're sitting on more reserve than that right now. And so, council members, I'm wanting us to not go up as much as we need. I think we need to try to relieve the citizens by going up less than what we think it's gonna take to balance the budget. Use up a little bit more reserve to try to help everybody get over the hump this year, is my thinking. So I've been talking to staff and kicking around numbers like 8.5 instead of 9.1.
Any further discussion from council?
Well, to your point, Councilman Moore, yeah, we do have more than 25% in our reserve fund precisely for these reasons. And, one of the things that I think was a little bit misleading about the presentation was that we only saw the extreme. We only saw what happens if we roll back, and only saw what happens if we raise it to 9.2. But a very standard practice is to not roll back and keep the rate the same and deal with the fact that, folks are seeing a 25, 35% increase in their property value. And this is especially true if you're at below 200,000. Your property value has gone up much faster than if you have a $400,000 house, especially here. A few years ago, you could buy a $50,000 house. John will tell you, there's not a $50,000 house in the county anymore. It doesn't exist. So there are the options we were presented were two extremes. And I'm with you, Councilwoman Barber. Especially since we've gone up 10% on water, 10% on sewer, 10% on trash, 10% on stormwater. Property valuations have gone up 25%, and the rate that we're raising it to is paying back the general fund balance. So I'm not sure we need to do all that much of a burden on our citizens right off the bat, especially considering, I can tell you this, the citizens living in Fletcher neighborhood or off of Zetterau Road or up there in Moss Creek, I tell you what, they're not getting 20% increases in their salaries. They're certainly not seeing 10% monthly increases in their salaries. And yet we're raising the rates on not only services. I understand that our employees are important, but we do have some money in the bank, and this is a rainy day. So we've got a lot of growth. I haven't seen any projection about how much this growth is going to generate in the next 3 to 5 years. How come we haven't seen those kind of calculations? If we got 600 townhomes coming, you can estimate the value of those homes. You can estimate the amount of money it's going to generate. You can estimate the amount of revenue it's going to increase for our water, sewer, and trash. But I haven't seen any of those revenues. All we're seeing is we got to raise taxes to meet the budget, or it just seems like we're not getting enough information in the middle. For me, I'd love to see it just stay right where it is. Don't roll it back, but leave it where it is. It gives us 7.2 million. It still is. We still go into our reserve fund for another year. But I anticipate the amount of growth over the next 2 to 3 years. We haven't even calculated publicist collections into our, all that's going on out there. There's still a lot of growth coming. And I don't think we're calculating that into our future projections. We're just looking at today. So that's where I'm at. I'd love to see it stick at 7.308.
Any further discussion from council?
So I'm looking around and seeing that there are 4 people here, and the mayor votes for this at time. So it sounds like that's what's going to come down to, unless somebody has other questions or proposals.
I don't know. I think we feel. If we've got the money, we've been sitting on this cushion.
We've spent the last 10 years keeping our belt tight exactly for one of these situations.
From $90,000 to, what is it now? 7.
And if we get 25% in the next 2 years, then maybe we need to look at it. But for now, we've got this cushion for a reason. And we owe it to our citizens to figure out a way to do it within the budget that we have.
So, Mr. Mayor, process question. You run the meeting, I know, but if we don't have 3 votes to pass it as it is, then the motion dies and we're open to something new, like us coming up with a different number? Is that how this needs to work?
We set the rate today.
Right? So but what's before us is the staff's recommendation that we pass it. And if we don't, then we come up with something different.
Yeah, bottom line is we set the rate today, whatever that rate may be, whether it be rollback, 7.3, 8.1, 9.2, whatever it is. And my recommendation is 7.3. It's not a rollback. We're seeing $1 million more in our general fund. And if we see more growth, we're going to see more money in our revenue. So we need to focus on our growth. And I think you're going to see 5 or 6 presentations just in this meeting where they're going to add another 200-300 homes right here in the middle of town. I think that's great.
Some would just make me nervous. John, are you thinking a number?
I'm not thinking numbers, I'm sorry, all I'm thinking is public safety. What's the fastest way is gonna get citizens of Statesboro safe? That's what's going through my mind.
So we gotta come up with a number.
So tell me something, I don't know what to do.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to chime in, and this is a very tough moment. And one of the things that we've prided ourselves on as the City of Statesboro as an organization is that we took care of our citizens. When we received our CARE money, when we received our ARPA funds, we took all $17 million and put it into the people. We're building a $2 million food bank. We're revitalizing $5 million in homes for individuals that's most vulnerable. We're taking $6 million and we're going into neighborhoods that have historically not been attached to the city's sewer, and we're fixing those areas. And so we took those funds and we put them directly back into the people. During COVID, we were told during COVID, before the public had any awareness of this, what the experts told us during COVID was that if we did not handle that space correctly, we were going to see the economic ramifications of this for years to come. And now we are 3 years beyond COVID. The job layoffs, the supply chain issues, the inflation rates, all of the things that the economists said was going to happen, it happened. And during COVID, the City of Statesboro bought over 500,000 meals to feed families in this community. Your Board of Commissioners didn't do it. Your Board of Education didn't do it. It was the City of Statesboro. The City of Statesboro picked up the mantle and delivered not just 500,000 meals for people that live in the city, but 500,000 meals for anyone that lived in the county. We have been a very compassionate organization. We've invested into our young people, and we've continued to take care of those that's most vulnerable. And the economic issue that we're facing is not low. It's not just Statesboro. It's not just Bullock County. This is happening across the nation. Our country is in a very difficult space at this time. And how long this is going to last, we don't know. But what we can tell you is that just like if we sit at our homes at our kitchen tables and we're trying to figure out how do we pay this bill, how do we pay that bill, if we're able to keep the things or do we have to cut some things, that's the same space that the City of Statesboro is in. And the truth of the matter is that this area that we're in, the employees that we keep saying that we have to protect are the ones that provide services to you. And the interesting thing is this, is that if you're a sanitation worker for the City of Statesboro, and you've got plants like Hyundai and True Value and Ecoplast and all these other companies that's coming in and they're paying $55,000 to $60,000 to walk through the door, and they're paying 93% of their healthcare per month, which equals out to about $80 to $100 for a family. That's some stiff competition that we're dealing with. And the one thing that we've always done is try to be extremely transparent. And last year, the conversation of raising the taxes came up, and we decided not to do it. And we spent $600,000 of the fund balance. And now $7 million sound like a lot until you divide it by 33,438 people. Then you realize it's not much at all. And as your mayor, I can tell you, when I pulled up on Pembroke, Georgia, and that tornado had gone through, and FEMA declared that with all the damage that Pembroke had, it still did not qualify for federal aid. So that means Pembroke had to put itself back together. And what our fund balance does is that any tragic event happen to our community, it allows us to put ourselves back together. And I, for one, as your mayor, recognize that this is difficult. But when we're talking about maintaining our employees, what we're really saying is that we want to be able to maintain our service to you. Because we talk about public safety and fire and police department, but as soon as the sanitation worker does not show up because they've chosen another opportunity, that's when we hear from the public. It's those simple things. Remember when we had 7, 8, 9 inches of rain fall on us just the other week because a hurricane came through? And our roads were immediately open, our waterways was immediately open. That was because of the people that work for you. And that's what this conversation is really about. And the truth of the matter is that it is our hope that down the line we will be able to roll back the taxes. But in this space right now, as your mayor, I can tell you that we are in a very difficult situation. And we balance everything out. If I was casting a vote, I would cast a vote for us to do what the staff recommended. And the reason being is because my concern for my citizens is this: if anything happened to us tragically, it's going to be this organization that's going to be out there working, and we're not going to be waiting for FEMA. We're not going to be waiting for anyone to come save us. We're going to work to save ourselves. And so that's what I have to add to that conversation. I stand beside the staff's recommendation, but ultimately it's the council that has the final say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I amen what you're saying, and the concerns about safety and all. My understanding of the way we work, we set this budget and we're going to pay our people what we had promised for the next year. We're debating whether we're going to go into that fund balance, whether we'll go into that reserve to do it or not. What we set the millage rate determines whether we're going to get enough money in to meet all those expenses, or whether we're going to go into savings to do it. The millage rate is going to determine that. We're not talking about not having enough money to pay people. We're going to do that.
Councilwoman, I know exactly.
I'm asking them.
Yeah, what we're talking about. Yeah, what we're talking about is that. And I think in this space now, I think in this space now, does council have a recommendation? Does council have a motion at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. It was close to changing my mind, but I know this is for me, this is the fastest way that I can get my agenda for District 4. This is just to vote for the mill increase. So I'm for the full mill increase.
I'm for the full mill increase because I'm not just sitting up here talking. I walk these streets.
Mm-hmm.
And they call me in the middle of the night saying, where are the police? And I can't tell them, we don't have enough. This is my time.
Okay.
So I'm for safety. I am for safety. I'm just for safety.
All right, and so what I was asking, no, we're getting a point of clarification. John, what I was asking was that a motion?
I would like to ask a question before I make a motion.
Well, no, I'm not asking you to make a motion. I'm getting a point of clarification from John.
But I'll wait till everyone, speaks.
Okay, because I was asking for a motion, that's what I was asking. So that was not a
No,
motion.
I don't have, no, I'm not giving a motion,
Okay.
I was just telling you that, that is the way that I will vote when it comes to.
Okay, so we're turning it over to Councilmember Williams.
Mr. Pettit, can you tell us how much we're anticipating increasing the police staffing and budget for this next coming year? We keep talking about public safety, and both of you guys have mentioned, both of y'all have mentioned police. So let's just be clear, how much are we really increasing the police budget and staffing levels for this year?
And again, I'll have to go back to the numbers that I shared with you. I think what we approved with police is about 6 positions. And we also authorized the police department to be able to overhire. Our challenge with the police department is being able to ensure that we have a high enough salary that we can attract them. And it's not just a problem that we have in Statesboro, it's across the country. And I'll give you an example. My previous community had vacancies, and we right now we're sitting at about 16, 17 vacancies in the police department, and making sure that we can bring these people on board. My previous community actually raised their starting pay for their police officers to $60,000 a year.
And is there a plan to do that?
We're not there. Right now we're at about $46,000 a year.
Are we planning on using any of this increase to raise that next year?
The increase, yes. This increase is based on the implementation of a pay plan for next year.
Right.
And
That's not the same as increasing pay to attract police officers. That's what I asked.
But please let me, if you.
But I'm looking for, I asked the question, so this is the clarification I'm looking for.
Okay. We increased their pay by 5% for everybody.
Right?
We are also giving them pay for performance. During the course of the year, I brought to y'all, and we increased their pay by $3,000 for every police officer. And we funded that for 2 years, okay? But the budget that is before you anticipates not just for police officers and firefighters, but for all city employees, making sure that we have a new pay plan so that we can make sure we can compete with all these private sectors. We're not going to be able to keep everybody, but if you spend the fund balance this year, you're not going to have it for next year. And next year anticipates implementation of a new pay plan. And I will simply say every city employee should get some increased pay under that new pay plan. And it anticipates using fund balance next year to be able to implement that pay plan. And I will only say, and I know, Mr. Boyd, you didn't ask for this, but in 2019, we implemented a pay plan for our city employees. The council had to funded what they could. And we took three different times to increase that pay plan. And our pay plan fell behind before we could get it fully implemented. And this was a part of the discussion that we had. As a city manager, I'm going to do whatever y'all say. If you set it at 7.308, we're going to make it work. But if you spend that fund balance down and you spend $2.1 million out of that fund balance this year, that is a non-recurring fund. And we're going to be getting closer. We dropped from 54% last year down to 46% right now. So you spend $2 more million of it, and you're going to be well under 40% of fund balance. It's a tough place to go.
So you're saying that there's no specific money to increase police pay outside of the across-the-board 5% and pay for performance that all staff is eligible for. Is that correct? There's no plan to raise the starting level of police or anything like that. We haven't had this discussion, and that's not included in any of this, correct?
Not until the pay plan is done. That's what the pay study is being done.
Okay, right. Whatever, but the pay study is just going to come back and tell us to increase the rates anyway. So, my question though is, are we targeting specifically the police and the last 17? And that's what I'm getting at, is the money is not necessarily targeted for that. We're just increasing for everybody. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm not suggesting that it is. I'm just looking out for the people in my district, and I got a lot of them. We're senior citizens on fixed income. All the costs have gone up. Their trash costs have gone up. Their water costs have gone up. Their property rates have gone up. And then we're going to hit them again. And these people are getting a 2% bump in their money every year. We've got money in the bank because we're diligent. 25% is what we need. We're not spending down to 25%. And at 7.308, we're not spending 2.1 million. We're only spending 1 million, maybe 1.1. So it's not that you're only comparing it to the rollback numbers, and that is an important clarification. That the numbers you saw in there, 2.1, is that we roll back the rate a whole mil. And if we don't do that, obviously it's not going to be 2.1 mil. So there is a happy middle ground. I think we can find.
Councilwoman Moore?
I'd like to offer a motion that we set our millage rate at 8.125.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second. Is there a, what's the total, hold on just a second there. I'd like to figure out what that number is going to be.
Well, you should have did that before you seconded. So, yeah, so.
I'm sorry, then I'll withdraw my second and let me do my math.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Jeez.
Please.
Yeah, we're trying to work together. It's even cooperative.
It's not. It's a tough situation for everybody. This is not, just be calm now.
I'm calm.
As I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Mayor, I'm
7 point.
attempting to teach people who know more than I do about any of this, but I'm trying to offer a compromise between what's proposed and what we were at last year, which is roughly 8.125. Because my concern still is we're going to do what we have to do the best we can to keep people and to keep people safe. We've already committed to that. But are we going to do it out of savings, or are we going to do it out of the people's taxes for this year, for the coming year?
Anybody know if we spend 1.1 million out of our fund balance, what is that percentage wise?
I'm sorry, I haven't done the math either. I'm just coming up with numbers.
How much is fund balance?
Got 7.2 million now.
7.2 million. So that's questions.
Then not exactly the number. You raise the rate.
Each
I mean, it's very flexible. It also depends on how many new properties come online. That's what I'm talking about. We don't even know what couple.
I think that was considered.
Yes, sir.
Remember what the number was, the recommended increase was last year when we were looking at I know it's a tough number. It was more than 1.5 mil.
Just looking at both of them. Any further discussion by council?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Do you need to wait for Cindy's information?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John, just for the record, that will generate the general fund budget approximately 7.907 million
Next year.
next year, yeah. So considering 9.12 is 8.95, that's about $1 million less. So we're looking about going into the general fund maybe another 600,000 or 700,000.
We'd still be above 25%.
If we don't grow, with no growth.
USA was built on compromise, Paulette. What do you think?
What'd you say?
I said the USA was built on compromise. What do you think? I can go with it.
Well, if you go with it, then it's over.
I hear what you have to say. Okay.
If you go with it, it's over. I said what I wanted to say.
Okay. Third.
Okay. All right. What's the second? All those in favor?
All right.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Seeing that as none, motion passes. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 7. Public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve application CUV 23-08-01. Brenda O'Quinn requesting we are in session. Brenda O'Quinn requests a conditional use variance to allow for the operation of a treatment residence in the R20 single-family residential zoning district at 401 West Parish Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, can we take 60 seconds if folks want to leave? They can leave. Don't feel like, if anybody wants to leave after this, feel free to leave.
This is America, y'all. If y'all want to leave, y'all can leave.
Sometimes they don't want to leave.
Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Currently, the property is a single-family home which will be converted to a recovery home. This location will be operated by Pineland Behavioral Health, which operates a number of recovery homes throughout the city. As with all recovery homes, this will fall under all state licensing requirements. On West Paris Street. The parcel under the future land use map shows it to be in the established residential neighborhood. The current zoning, as we mentioned, is in the R20 zoning district. And the subject property is on the top left. The property to the northwest is on the bottom right. Property to the southwest is on the top left. And the property to the east is on the bottom right. This shows just the property survey since the house is already established. So the parcel on the top really represents the property survey. Staff does recommend approval of CUV 23-08-01. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of the conditional use variance does not grant the right to conduct renovations to the facility. All renovations must be completed through the building permit application process. 2, this conditional use does not grant the rights associated with a higher density residential district. Upon expiration of the treatment home permit, the provisions for unrelated persons must be followed. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on September 5th, 2023, the Commission recommended approval of the conditional use variance and staff conditions on a 5-0.
Thank you for the opportunity to come before you today. June DiPolito, I'm the CEO of Pineland Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And our agency is a public safety net for individuals in our communities with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and addictive diseases. We cover 8 counties and not just Statesboro, but Statesboro is our hub, and that's where the majority of our 400 employees live and work. But we do serve 8 counties, and we touch the lives of 6,000 individuals. In this particular program is our crisis respite. Will serve up to 6 individuals. We've been there already over a year, but the program has been in existence in other parts of Statesboro for going on 7 or 8 years. So it's temporary housing for people in need while we, the state safety net, look for other. So we're always interested in affordable housing and some of the issues y'all discussed tonight. And so we would like for you to respectfully approve for us to continue to operate. They don't have cars. We generally serve 2 to 3 people at the time. Rarely are we at the 6 maximum. But there will be only just the agency car that's there that will take them during the day to their day programs. We haven't had any complaints. We are good. It's hard to find housing, and it's certainly hard to find a house large enough for a program such as this. But we're giving people the opportunity to get back on their feet and us to support them in the city. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those and help in any way. Pineland is just another part of our community, and we're serving our motto is making a difference, and that's what our agency tries to do.
All right, thank you. If they have any discussion, we'll do that, during council discussion.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings.
All right, is there anyone else to speak for this request? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak against this request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? Oh, come on.
I guess my husband don't feel like coming up, so I'm Mary Blunt, and that's my husband, Wesley. We live at 26 West Moore Street, that right across from 401 West Parish Street, not too far from us, where we have our home, we live there. But we respect the mental ill folks, and we wish for them more help. They need more help. We all for that. And I think they need to have a place where they have more freedom to grow inside the home and outside the home. More space, not just with residents and families there. And but you can never tell when they're going to have a crisis, and the community would be at high there as a business. So the neighbor, Mr. James Ward, they disapproved. He wasn't able to come today, but he expressed his feelings that he disapproved it too. His name is James Ward and Audra. Also, the Parkers have presented this too. Marsha and Frank Parker have given their input in it, and they disapprove also. And we hope that can be, we wanted to express our opinion and voice our opinion on this case. So hopefully this will make a difference for our present here today, that you would reconsider another place for them.
Okay.
So we oppose that. We just like for you to know that, and hopefully you can kind of reconsider another place for them. And thank you all. Thank the mayor and the councilman for listening.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there anyone else for or against? Okay. All right, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And just as a point of information for folks that may be new tonight, council typically does not want to engage during that session because we have a special part that's for council discussion. And so if the council has any discussion, any question for any folks that's come to the podium, they will engage them at that time. So just wanted to let you know, because I know you seem like you wanted a response, and we kind of wait to a certain specific spot to do that. With that being said, I want to open it up for council discussion. Is there any discussion by council in regards to this matter?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. June, Mr. Polito, it sounded like you were saying to continue, but you're talking about just Pineland continuing. This is a new location that you're seeking permission to establish services?
I mean, we've been there for going on 2 years, yes, ma'am.
Okay, why was it before us now? I don't understand, Kathy.
It's a conditional use of variance, and we were requested to process.
Come forward.
Sorry. It's a conditional use variance, and the applicant does need it for her licensing, I believe, as well. So.
The services have already been provided at this location?
For 2 years? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We rented there, and it was our understanding that we fit the criteria and everything, so we've had inspections and everything. The city, the state, the county has been there. So now we're finding that it might be an issue, so we respectfully are requesting for a consideration.
So it's kind of an after-the-fact approval, it sounds like. It's already been happening for 2 years?
We wasn't aware of it.
Okay. So that kind of argues that they haven't been problems.
We haven't had any problems. We've been a good neighbor, and we would like to continue this.
That was my question. Have there been any problems in the 2 years that you've been operating? Have you seen any problems?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DePuto. Thank you. I forgot your name. Yeah.
Mary Blunt.
Ms. Blunt, have you seen any problems in the neighborhood?
Well, my neighbor that lived right there side 401, he lived on 403. And the business supposed to come is on 401. And he brought it to my attention that he had a neighbor from that house to come in his backyard and was kind of like saying harassing things to his wife. And he had to do something about that. I don't know if it's the same family or people that was there at that time,
But you personally haven't had any problems?
No, everything was just, I hadn't, just seen any of those over there.
Okay.
They like new people to me.
Okay.
No, they're new, it was other people's there. I don't know what was going on there.
We never knew of that complaint, but if there was, we would certainly address it. We have staff there, and because we would not want there to be any issues or problems. But I did not, and I said there were no complaints.
Mr. James said it was just one that they had to remove a male from there. I don't know what they had to remove him because he was in the backyard, in their backyard. He was wondering why he was back there, but they had to move him away from there, remove him from there.
So, Ms. DePuto, your property is not fenced in?
No, ma'am. There's shrubs along the way and everything. It's not fenced in. No, it's not.
So there's no barrier from other properties?
There's a small little fence and there's shrubbery along the way, but it's not that we put up additional fencing. And it's quite a large home, and it was added on to by the original family, and then we did some renovations when we first got there. So there are barriers, but it's not a total fence.
It's narrative, interest in history, but that we really can't take secondhand reports about problems. I mean, I appreciate your sharing it, but it also sounds like Mr. DePuto, and I know Pineland tries really hard to deal with problems. So maybe just you having the number and you sharing it with your neighbor. If there is any problems, you can call Pineland Direct, and they'll get somebody over there. Of course, you can call the police if it's really a safety issue. In general, we try to improve these places wherever we can because there's such a need for them. And it sounds like this one's been operating with only the one problem in the last 2 years. So I'm inclined to say we should allow it to continue.
Ken, do you see any ADA issues or anything that?
Glaring ADA issues under reasonable accommodations for disabled people, which are addicts and alcoholics who are in sobriety. Under federal case law, as long as there are 200 yards between these residential residences, it's essentially a violation of ADA, and that's a terrible idea to deny. And this is not within 200 yards of a similarly situated residence. It's just a simple, reasonable accommodations issue under our Americans with Disabilities Act. These people are considered, they're protected under the ADA. And as long as these residences, as long as these treatment centers are over 200 yards apart and don't create a special services district, there's really no choice here.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there's none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the conditional use.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to agenda item 8, which is a public hearing, consider the motion to approve 8A, application sub 23-08-02, David Pierce and Mitchell Ball request preliminary subdivision approval of approximately 0.64 acres of property to establish a single-family attached subdivision at 224 East Main Street. 8B, application sub 23-08-03, David Pierce and Mitchell Ball request preliminary subdivision approval of approximately 3.06 acres of property to establish a single-family attached subdivision at 17 Gordon Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Is there a second? All those in favor? Kathy, if you would.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I would like to take both of these applications under 8, both 8A and 8B together. And just as a point of information, these are preliminary subdivision approvals, and they must come to you according to our subdivision regulations, in that I have approval to approve administratively up until 4 parcels, but beyond 4 parcels, it must come to the city council for your review and approval. Okay, so currently the property is an existing single-family rental neighborhood with a park. The applicant intends to demolish the existing area and create a 41-unit single-family attached subdivision with a private street through the center of the property. The property is currently a part of the city's urban redevelopment plan, as well as the downtown tax allocation district. The project is currently under review for land disturbance and is projected to begin construction before the end of the year. So you can see there are 4 parcels actually outlined in red there. They border on East Gordon Street as well as onto East Main Street. The future land use map shows this to be in an established residential neighborhood. And the current zoning map shows this to be in an R4 zoning district, so they really already have the zoning in place for this project. The subject property is shown on the top left, the property to the north on the bottom right. The subject property, which shows the park actually, is on the top left, and the property to the south is on the bottom right. And this shows the preliminary plat for the project. You can see South Gordon Street on the right and East Main Street on the very left there. Staff does recommend approval of subdivision 23-08-02 and subdivision 23-08-03. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this preliminary subdivision does not grant the right to develop on the site without approval. All construction must be approved by the city. Prior to construction commencement on any proposed lot, a subdivision plat, as well as the bylaws and restrictive covenants of the HOA, shall be reviewed and approved by staff, in addition to any other applicable City of Statesboro subdivision regulations. 3, utility easements, including but not limited to right-of-way, water, sewer, gas, etc., must be granted to the city as deemed necessary by the Department of Public Works and Engineering and the Department of Public Utilities. 4, the final plat must meet all requirements of the existing Article 3 of the City of Statesboro zoning ordinance before approval and before any units may be sold in the subdivision. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on September 5th, 2023, the Commission recommended approval of the preliminary subdivision plat and staff conditions on a 5-0 vote. That is my presentation, sir.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here to speak for this request?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Hayden Rollins with Hussey Gay Bell, and I'm here on behalf of the developers. Like Ms. Kathy said, this is 41 units we're proposing for this area. We believe it's a great redevelopment for the downtown area. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that council has.
Thank you. Is there anyone else speak for it? Anyone who speaks against this request? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Is there a second? All those in favor? All right, we want to open it up for council discussion. Any discussion about council?
Kathy, you mentioned this is a private road. Is it going to remain private? Is it going to be gated? Sorry, whoever wants to answer that.
It will be a private road. It will not be gated, though.
It won't be gated, so you guys are going to maintain the road?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So then I guess we'll say single owner then, is that the idea?
It could possibly be subdivided. They're meant to be separate homes, but they will be maintained over one HOA. So
one HOA.
And then say that again, I didn't understand.
They have the possibility to be sold separately, but they will be maintained by one HOA. So if you buy a property there as part of your HOA, you won't have the single burden of the road. So if something were to happen, it's the HOA's responsibility to fix that.
Usually the road next year, you're right?
Yes, sir.
I was curious, we need new homes in Statesboro, so we'll hopefully work this out. But what size homes are we talking about and what price point?
I would like to let the developer speak to that.
Mayor, City Council, Ms. Martin, your question?
The price point of the homes and the square footage.
Square footage right now, we're looking around 1,040 to 1,100. And then the price point is probably going to be around the 150 to 170.
Attached?
Single family attached dwelling units, yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The only other question I did, and this one is definitely for Kathy. Okay. It's been my experience that backing out into the streets is not necessarily the best way. It's not good for pedestrian, or is it necessarily good for like kind of the aesthetics? Is that the only possible way they could do that, or can they do parking in the setback in the back, or that's not, it's not as conducive towards pedestrian friendly type streets to have back out parking. So, I mean, the rest of it is great. I mean, just that one little section I was wondering.
Right, well, as you know, with our townhouse ordinance for the R2, we do mandate that there be driveways with garages. Since these are more of basically an apartment style development,
right.
Therefore, and because it is a private street, we did allow them to back in, into the
Gordon Street's not private.
Pardon me?
Gordon Street's not a private street. I'm not really worried about the private area, just that one little section.
Oh, I see what you're talking about for East Gordon Street.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's something that we can, this is a preliminary subdivision plan. It still needs to go through engineering and public works. So I think at that point they'll catch that and they'll come up with some modifications because this is just preliminary. Okay.
Paul, it's the depth of that, they would not be back into the street. There's actually, I think, 27 feet and then 20 feet of parking. So whenever you come out, you would be turning into the parking lot and then out into the street. So,
right.
Yeah. So it's more of like a hammerhead turn right there. And it's that.
Wait, which one are we talking about?
The property on Gordon Street. There's actually about.
The home's actually on Gordon Street. Those aren't back at on South Gordon Street.
So they have room to back into their own parking lot.
Is there a little mini parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're just kind of limited on options just because of the depth of that parcel.
Right.
But really, you're no different than if the streets were public in a townhome development. least be forward facing when you're coming out.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Kathy, I have one question, please. So this is single family, even though it's attached and it's residential. So right now, they're under no requirements about trees or green space or amenity space or any of that?
Well, we are working with them in terms of, and maybe Hayden can speak to that as well, in terms of what amenity space is being proposed for this.
Yes, I believe we are meeting 10% of the amenity space, or of the total parcel for open space. We want to keep this area open to the residents that are living there so that they can walk downtown and have a place that's homey. So.
Trees make it home.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Also.
Yes, thank you.
Any further discussion by council?
My residents on Savannah will be happy.
There's no further discussion. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move down to agenda item 8. This is a public hearing, consideration of motion to approve application RZ 23-08-04 KB Reynolds LLC requesting zoning map amendment or the HOC R15 highway oriented commercial single family residential zoning district to the R4 high density residential zoning district on approximately 15.46 acres in order to develop a single family attached subdivision on Miller Street extension. 9D is application LLC requests a zoning map amendment from the HOC highway oriented commercial zoning districts to the R4 high density residential zoning district in approximately 1 acre in order to develop a single family attached subdivision on Miller Street extension. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Kathy, if you will.
Yes, thank you. The property is currently a primarily vacant wooded area with a dilapidated structure in the center, which is currently a separate parcel. The applicant intends to raise the existing structure in order to develop a single-family attached rental subdivision on Miller Street. The property is not currently under review and would be required to meet all zoning requirements as outlined in the Unified Development Code upon passage. So you can see the location map of this parcel on Miller Street with the other 1 acre parcel in the center, which is, the plan is to raise that house. The,
And combined parcels?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And so the future land use map shows this parcel to be, or parcels, I should say, in the established residential neighborhood. The current zoning is the yellow represents the HOC, and then at the bottom you can see a little blue area, and that is represented by the R15 zoning district. The subject property is shown on the top left, and the property to the west on the bottom right. Property to the north on the top left, and the property to the east on the bottom right. And essentially, this is a preliminary plat of the development, as you can see. And so staff does recommend approval of RZ 23-08-04 and RZ 23-08-05. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of the zoning map amendment does not grant the right to develop on the property. All construction must be reviewed and approved by the city. 2, buffering in accordance with Article 23 of the Statesboro zoning ordinance must be installed to screen the property on all sides. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on September 5th, 2023, the Commission recommended approval of the zoning map amendment and staff conditions on a 5-0 vote. That is my presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone here to speak for the request?
Good afternoon again. Hayden Rollins, Husky Gay Bell here on behalf of the developer. This development will be done by Connor Development. They're a developer out of Savannah, Georgia. If you aren't familiar with them, they've been involved in the real estate development game for over 50 years. They've actually been a client for this development in particular will have 184 units. There'll be a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. They typically have expansive amenities in their developments, as you can see by this board here. They'll have a clubhouse, pool. They'll actually have a dog park and a car care center. The developer really is conscious of the quality of life for its residents. The market will be professionals and families that may be in transitions. Maybe there's new residents that are coming to Statesboro and want a place to live that's safe and before they find their final home, as you could say. So on that note, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak for? Is there anyone here to speak against the request? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we want to open it up for council discussion. Any discussion by council?
Contra Realty, that's what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I thought you said Connor. Thank you, yeah, they're big outfit.
Is there any further discussion by council?
Sorry, go ahead.
This is anticipated as being a complex where folks are going to win. It's not going to be individually owned.
Yes, ma'am. These will be for rent.
Okay. And do you have an idea about the points? I mean, the price point of rental?
I do not, but the developer is here if he wants to speak on that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of council. I'm Mark Contra with Connor Development Company. Happy to answer any questions. Certainly, Councilman Lamar, in Chatham County and through a market study here in the Statesboro area, we think our rental rates will range somewhere in the $1,400 to $1,800 a month range, depending on the unit type of area.
And you got the blue, the red, and the yellow. What are the? Sorry, I can't see the details on there.
Different building types.
Right.
Our building types have different unit sizes and types in them. So typically in this community, you'll see 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and 3-bedroom units spread throughout the community, and those different colors represent different styles of buildings that contain different styles of units.
So a 3-bedroom unit would be around ballpark $1,800 a month,
Somewhere in the vicinity between $1,700 and $1,800 a month.
and a 1-bedroom is
Somewhere in the vicinity of $1,300 to $1,400 a month.
so these would not fall under affordable homes.
Not under HUD's definition of affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. It looks like a beautiful product. I should have asked Kathy. I meant to ask in advance, and there was too much on the agenda this time. I'm getting a little confused. We've already approved one project on this street, haven't we, for senior housing? Isn't there one already in process nearby?
Yes, there is. Yes, right next door.
Okay, and that's going to be HUD affordable, market control?
Yeah, let me,
So CJ Chance, Husky Gay Bell. So it was roughly 12 months ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was actually a tax credit deal that was approved adjacent to this property.
Right.
That will be a HUD market price project. This is a Class A market rate price project. So this is looking at young professionals, Georgia Southern professors, people who are moving into town, coming in to work at these new plants, that kind of stuff. That's what this project is meant to hit. So I think that with the variety that's coming into town, it makes sense, and they're right next to each other as well. So you've got a market rate, plus you've got a tax credit deal on the same street.
Yeah,
We have a tax credit development actually.
Yeah, we have that, and that's 11% tax, and this is a 4% tax. So, but they're both classified as affordable housing.
And again, this is a development that's residential, that's not subject to any of our free space or amenities or any of that. I mean, they built.
Well, we're trying to meet the requirements of the UDC as these projects come through. And so we are working with the developers. As Hayden can tell you, we're really working with them very
strenuously.
Strenuously, in order to carry out the intent of the UDC.
Thank you.
Yes, and I would like to add on that note that with that UDC, it just requires 10% of the area. We could leave it a grass field, but in this case, the developer wants to provide really nice amenities for the residents.
Thank you.
You guys have a ballpark about how much each unit will be valued at when it's built, or the entire property is good? You don't want to prime up the tax assessor, I realize, so you can estimate a little.
Well, this goes back to item number 6 on the agenda. This is going to increase some of the tax base in the city. How much it is, I don't know that, but I will say this: they've got 3 developments. We've been involved with one of them in Savannah right now. No, 2 of them. We did 2 of them, and they fully retain ownership of these projects.
Right.
So this is not something that they build and they flip. I think the first one we did was probably 15 years ago, and they still retain ownership of it. They did another one about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and then we are wrapping up the completion on their 3rd one, and they still own all 3 of them. So this is not a project they build and let it run down and flip it. They still own them.
Yeah, no, and the only reason I ask is for that exact reason, the tax base, 144 units, if those things are worth $200,000 a piece, that's $28.8 million that property goes to. Currently, it sits at 155. Pretty good deal. Thank you.
Any further discussion by council? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion?
So moved. Approved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we move down to agenda item 10, which is the public hearing, consideration of a motion for application sub 23-08-06. Tim Stone requests preliminary subdivision approval of approximately 54.06 acres of property to establish a 144 lot, single family detached subdivision at Warner Road. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property is currently a vacant and mostly cleared lot on Quanah Road. This lot was recently annexed to the city under the R6 single-family residential designation. The intent of the applicant is to develop the site as a 144-unit single-family detached subdivision under the existing R6 ordinance. As the project is currently under review, the applicant has made provisions to include additional trees on each lot as referenced in the pending UDC. The project is currently undergoing a traffic study and may not receive a land disturbance permit until completion of this study, which may alter entry and exit roads, but should not impede on the overall development of individual lots. So you can see the parcel outlined in red, and you see Quanah Road on the right-hand side of the parcel and the Veterans Memorial Parkway on the left side of the parcel. The future development map shows this to be in an established residential neighborhood. The current zoning, which was recently zoned, was R6. The subject property is shown on the top left. The property to the east on the bottom right, we have good pictures of clouds. And the property on the top left is the property to the north, and the property to the south is shown on the bottom right. And this is a preliminary plat showing the project as it is proposed. And staff does recommend approval of subdivision 23-08-06. If this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be subject to the applicant's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. 1, approval of this preliminary subdivision plat does not grant the site and/or building plan approval as submitted. Project will be required to meet all city ordinances and applicable building codes. 2, all street lighting must meet city standards and be approved by the city. 3, utility easements including but not limited to right-of-way, water, sewer, gas, etc. must be granted to the city as deemed necessary by the Department of Engineering and Public Utilities. The final plat must meet all requirements of Article 3 of the City of Statesboro Subdivision Ordinance before being presented to the city for approval and before any units may be sold in the subdivision. 5, the applicant must meet all requirements designated by the existing conditions associated with the approved zoning map amendment on this site. 6, the ingress and egress of this site may be amended as a result of the ongoing traffic study if approved under the direction of the Department of Public Works and Engineering. At the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on September 5th, 2023, the Commission recommended approval of the preliminary subdivision plat and staff conditions on a 5-0 vote. That is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone here to speak for this request?
Good afternoon again. Promise is the last one. Hayden Rollins with Hussey Gay Bell. I would like to add a few things to what Ms. Kathy said. I believe the agenda has 144 lots. This is 146. So a minor change there. I don't believe she mentioned what amenities are going to be planned, but in the park area, there will be an open air pavilion with a playground there. So this developer is new to the area, and they're really excited to get going in Statesboro. So glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak for? Anybody to speak against? All right, seeing that there's none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we want to open up for council discussion. Any discussion by council?
Hey, Jason, this is that section of the bypass where they're really not letting anybody cut it. I mean, don't you have to get that DOT approved?
That's correct. Yeah, they're restricted all those access points,
So, and the reason I ask that is because that means all that traffic will be on Kiwanis Road.
That's correct.
Which is for Coulter, which is, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
So, hey, while we, should I plug the transportation plan next Tuesday? Yeah, maybe that's what we need to discuss. So, just wanted to clarify that.
Correct.
There's a lot of new cars on that road.
Any further discussion by council?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. So tell me about these, how big they're gonna be and what they're gonna sell for. They're single family intended to be sold?
Yes, they will be single family intended to be sold, and back when we did this annexation, the developer was intending on these homes to be in the low to high 300s.
And they're gonna be about how big? 1,200?
I believe around 2,500 square feet.
2,500?
Yes, ma'am. But that'll vary depending on what product.
Gotcha.
And what exterior? Anticipating exterior?
I'm not sure what the exterior is going to be, but it'll meet whatever city standards are in place. And just for council to know as well, I believe the new Unified Development Code only requires one tree per lot. Typically, this developer puts at least one in the front and at least one in the back. So.
Nice. Sounds good. Thank you.
Any further discussion by council?
Move
Is there a motion?
to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move down to agenda item 11, which is the second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance adopting the state's Florida Unified Development Code. Mr. Petty.
Well, Mayor, this is the second reading, and Caleb Rasico is here for any further discussion. We do recommend approval of Unified Development Code.
Okay. All right, any discussion by council?
Yay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move on to agenda item 12, second reading, consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2023-13, or ordinance amending chapter 22, cable communications.
Same, Mayor, part of that, you said.
All right. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Second reading, second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2023-14, or ordinance amending chapter 26, cemeteries. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve?
Aye.
Who had the first? All right, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, second reading, consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2023-15, or ordinance amending chapter 38, environment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, second reading, consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2023-08, or ordinance amending chapter 18, business and state code ordinance in order to implement.
Doing so fast. Now, I do, Mayor, could I just say, you got UDC, Unified Development Code, and Caleb is here. And I just wanted to say in his presence, and I know y'all have appreciated Caleb as our consultant, TSW, and the work that he did, and with our staff, and the public meetings that occurred. And the important thing is that we took a 44-year-old ordinance and rewrote it. And even during that time, we had developments that we didn't have in our code, and Caleb was able to provide us with the model ordinance for our townhouse ordinance, which y'all did adopt. And so I just wanted to publicly thank him for the work and the leadership that he's provided, although we did pay for it. I think he ought to live in Statesboro, but he's done a great job for our city. And so I just wanted to appreciate him in your presence.
Just as an FYI, everybody, that is a big deal.
Thank you.
A lot more user friendly.
Sir, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, let me finish this out. If I don't read it, I'll get it wrong.
No, don't move that yet.
Yeah. Second reading and consideration for motion to approve ordinance 2023-08 and ordinance amending chapter 18 business of the Statesboro Code of Ordinance in order to implement Article 11, creating licensing and operational requirements for event centers. Okay.
Mayor, Council, this is back before y'all for second reading. This is for the event center ordinance to be a new licensure and regulatory scheme within our code of ordinances. It would cover event centers, which are non-residential locations holding events such as private parties, live musical concerts, performing arts presentations, etc. Any place holding just business meetings will simply not be required to have a license under this, and also any location that has an alcohol license would not. And then we've got the regulations set out down in 18.321. They're the same as the ones that came before y'all at the last meeting. However, I did amend subsection D of 18.321 to reflect the amendment y'all requested during the work session. So the way that it reads currently, or the way that the amended written is, alcohol is expressly prohibited unless a valid catered event permit is obtained for that time and date. That is not substantial change amendment enough to trigger reversion back to first reading. The remainder of the ordinance is the same as in y'all's packet and that we considered at the last meeting for first reading.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Is there a motion from council?
I'll make a motion to approve the language with including the change, recommended change by the city attorney for subsection D.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we'll move down to agenda item 16. Second reading, consider the motion to approve ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance amending chapter 18 business City of Statesboro Code of Ordinance and amending to implement Article 12, creating a regulatory structure to allow for mobile public vending on city right-of-way.
Mayor and Council, this is before y'all. This is essentially the ice cream truck ordinance. It's a little bad timing season-wise, but that's where we are. This would allow for once again, it's very similar to the one before it. It allows for licensure and regulation of these mobile public vending units. These are essentially food trucks without the cooking in there. These are more like mobile stores. Of course, you can sell prepackaged goods of any kind. And we've got, the hours of operation. We have, what they can, that they can sell, about restricting loading, litter. All of that's in there, and it also sets up, about how they get the license, the aesthetic standards, and it's a pretty voluminous regulatory scheme because what we're talking about here is essentially roving stores within the city's right of way. So of course it is an expansive ordinance, and this is a best practices. I've amended this from another jurisdiction. This is not one that I just wrote on my own. It is best practices, and it had not been amended in a long time in another jurisdiction. So hopefully this will work for us.
All right, good deal. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? All right, move down to agenda item 17, consideration of motion authorizing the mayor to execute a purchase agreement for right-of-way acquisition on Brandon Street for the Brandon Street Sidewalk Project. Funding is provided from 2018 T-Splits. Mr. Penny.
I really can't add any more, Mayor. We do recommend approval, so we can purchase that right.
Okay. Any discussion by council?
The only question I have is, where we going? We're going from where to where?
Jason?
Gentilly to Claiborne.
Okay, so just shy of, what is that around right there?
So this will connect the Prince Way, Gentilly Drive neighborhood back to the commercial corridor on Gentilly and Brandon Street, and the YMCA to that neighborhood.
25 cents per yard. Okay.
There's already a counter on there, yes.
Is there a motion to approve? Second. All those in favor? All right, agenda item 18, consideration for motion to authorize the mayor to sign 2 contracts with Flock Safety for the lease of Flock license plate reader equipment.
And Mayor, members of the council, police department has utilized this Flock. I think we have 4 devices in place right now. And so part of this is like a 2-part agreement. One is for a 5-year lease at $10,000 a year, for which we need authorization for you to approve. And then the other is for the deployment of about 39 additional devices throughout the city that will be able to read license plates, but also can detect some other gunshots and things of that nature. And that is that's a 3-year lease, a 3-year agreement, and the cost is being covered by a grant of over $500,000. And we do recommend approval for that. That will allow us time to determine what part of the technology that we're using that we want to continue to use in Statesboro. But we do need the city council to approve the agreement and authorize you to be able to sign both agreements, and we recommend it to you. Chief, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any discussion by council?
This is something I'm for 100%.
All right.
Triangulates the gunshot.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So good.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We'll move down to agenda item 19, consideration of a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a contract with Quality Tire Recycling LLC for extension of the used tire disposal contract.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, we have This is the company we currently use for disposing of used tires. And what there's an annual increase, they're requesting an increase of about 4%. And we do recommend that we continue the contract with this company for quality tire recycling LLC for scrap tire disposal. And we recommend approval by the mayor and council. There is an increase and from $140 a ton to $160 a ton. But again, the budget, these funds are budgeted and at about $50,000. And we don't anticipate that we will use all of that, but it's there. I recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. King. All right, is there a motion to approve?
Jason, don't we normally get a reimbursement grant for recycling tires, or is this different?
It's different.
Oh.
These are all the tires that come from the various sources across the schools. We do have certain programs, though, that we can get EED grants for,
Okay.
but not this specific.
Thank you, Ms. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. I'll move down to agenda item 20, consideration of a motion to purchase one 2023 Ford F-150 XL Super Cab 4x4 and one 2023 Ford F-150 XL Super Crew 4x4 for the Public Works and Engineering Department from Meta Ford for a total amount of $89,989.64. Based upon written quotes received, the funding source is solid waste disposal, operating income, and the CIP as SWD-16.R. Yeah. Mr. King.
I can't really add anything. We do recommend approval.
Any discussion by council?
It says that we are trading in, excuse me, a 2019 Ford F-150 CNG.
What we're doing, I think we're disposing of the 2009 vehicle. And what we're doing is we're going to take that 2019 and make it a reserve unit. We've had to do some extensive maintenance on that piece of equipment, so we'll move it offline and use it as a reserve. So we can maintain.
We still buying CNG? Small cab trucks?
Limited on some applications. It costs substantially more.
Thank you. That's it.
Any further discussion from council? Seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, move down to agenda item 21, consideration of motion to amend our contract with Utility Services Company Incorporated to add the Bruce Young Industrial Park elevated storage tank to our annual maintenance contract in the amount of $40,740 to be paid for with the funds included in the FY 2024 water and sewer operating budget.
Mayor and members of council, we have a elevated tank out at Bouchon Park, and we just simply need to add it to the contract so we can have it maintained, and this company will provide that service for us. That amount, I recommend it to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bennett. All right, any discussion by council? Seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to other business from city council. Any other business?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of things I'd like to share, please. Our community partners, the SDA and Main Street, invite anybody who wants to come 3 doors down to Innovation Alley. They're having an expo. The Business and Innovation Group's putting on an expo and workshop till 8 o'clock. So if you go straight out, you might can still get some refreshments. And also, as Mr. William alluded to, there is a public hearing set for Monday from 5 to 8 at First Methodist Church downtown, the back social hall, where we'll have folks there talking about the shared transportation plan. This is something Statesboro and Bullock County goes together on. And so we're looking at the transportation is a huge issue already, and it's going to get a lot bigger. So go and attend and learn more. If you can't go, if you get on Facebook and look at the City of Statesboro page, there's a survey. There's a link to a survey where you can register your opinions or your thoughts about our transportation needs. And I always like to do 3 things. So I just wanted to say amen to what you said earlier, Mr. Mayor, about the City of Statesboro really trying to look out for our citizens. It's been a great joy to serve with this council because I think all of us really do try to do that. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. All right, and so we want to move over to city manager comments if there's nothing else from council.
Mayor, members of the council, I do want to just share with you in your FYI packet, one of the things that y'all have asked us to do, and the security incentive program that y'all approved. There's a copy of a letter that we're sharing with some of the apartment complexes to try to get them to utilize some of those grant funds to use some technology. So just want to call that to your attention. At the last council meeting, I did mention that, and Ms. Barr was a part of it. I believe Ms. Barr was on the council meeting. Georgia Southern, Jing Yin, and Stacy Smallwood, they applied for a grant through, there's some federal money, but it's through Georgia Tech. And it's looking at, for us, we were one of 4 cities that were awarded some funding. And in our case, what Jinjing is, what they're going to be doing, they're going to be studying our indoor environments. And they were able to secure a grant of $127,000. And we couldn't announce it, but we had to allow the partners, the funders, to announce it. And so we'll be surveying our employees, and anyone can participate in it. And what they'll be doing is looking at how they can improve the environment. And part of those funds will actually be used to purchase plants that can affect the environment. And so we're excited for Jinjing and us, and for our employees to be able to participate in that program. And then the other thing I'll just mention, and I'm doing this on behalf of the city clerk. So you have before you a notice of election cancellation. And so I guess maybe this is a little congratulations. And so we're going to be advertising that for District 3 and for District 5, since there's no opposition, then those decisions are already made. And so we will have an election for District 2. But this ad is going in, and the city clerk can expound a little bit more to right.
So what it's doing as well is Statesboro 2 precinct, which they go to the Pittman Park United Methodist Church there on Fair Road. They will not have a vote in the municipal election this year. But Statesboro 1 precinct at Loretta Mill Road. Yes, but the precinct is Statesboro 1. Yeah.
But nobody said,
But it's-
nobody want to let everybody correct that.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Congratulations. So no one, that's the only election that will be.
No, Paulette.
That's what I mean, Paulette,
Right.
District 2, that's it. Every vote counts. Every person you talk to. And Mayor, that's all I have.
That's it? Okay. All right, we're going to have public comments, and on our agenda for public comments, we have Pastor Arthur Lee Kelly. If you will, come on up.
Amen. Good afternoon to the council, to the mayor. We're glad to be here tonight, and we want to say that I'm the pastor. My name is Arthur Kelly, senior pastor of Thomas Grove Missionary Baptist Church on 500 East Olive Avenue, Olive Street. I get Avenue and Street mixed up. Street. I live in Savannah, Georgia, but I pastor here in Statesboro, and I have a love for Statesboro and the people of Statesboro since pastoring here. But we have a problem tonight that we are going to bring to the council, because we believe that the council can help us alleviate this problem, and that is the ditch that sits behind the sanctuary. And right now it's eroding. The dirt and everything is eroding. Even the fence is about to fall in because of the erosion. There's a drainage ditch sitting right behind the church. And it's a major problem because with the erosion, it's causing cracks in our fellowship hall. And those cracks in the fellowship hall are going to get worse and worse. And we cannot address the building until we address the problem that's affecting the building. And that, we believe, is the drainage ditch. So we're asking that a culvert be placed on our side of the ditch that will alleviate the erosion problem. That's our concern. That's why we are here tonight. We have some other members of Thomas Grove that came with us. We have about 51 members who could not be here, but they signed a petition in their absence. But that's our problem, Mayor. And we are asking for your help, and we believe that with the council's help, that we can get that resolved so that we can carry. We don't want to lose our building. We don't want to lose it.
Your stuff go on to Thomas Grove.
Amen. So we thank you in advance for your thank you for listening, and thank you in advance for your help.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And then next we will. Oh yeah, we know. Yeah. Ms. Sue, I just saw Ms. Sue. This year.
Thanks again for letting me come up, and I'm sure y'all know what I'm going to say. But what I'd like to do on the garbage cans that are being left out 24/7 by residents in the city is I would like to impose, instead of a $10 fine for leaving them out, increase that fine to $50. And let's say on East Main, there's 5 garbage cans out every Sunday on the sidewalk. That's $50 to the owner of the complex. Well, $200 a month isn't a lot of money to him because they're out 24/7 all the time. But $2,500 might get his attention. So
it's gonna get some attention.
Huh?
It's gonna get some attention.
It'll get money. But I would like for y'all to impose, instead of $10, increase that to $50 and impose it on the owner of the complex. And that's where the responsibility belongs. You know, for the responsibility of the grass, the maintenance, and everything else.
Okay. And what street is that again? Where's all?
East Main. East Main. I gave pictures to Mr. Kennedy the other day on Coach Hill Boulevard. I mean, you could make $5,000 a month easy there. The city could easily, because those are mostly apartments. Very few are owners, and their garbage cans are out forever. They're not ever moved. And you got to make Statesboro a beautiful city for people living in it. People don't like trash.
Yes.
And that's what it is. It's a trash can. So,
thank you.
if y'all will consider that, I'll come back next month and find out if y'all do anything about it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. All right. The next thing that we have on our agenda, there's no further public comments.
Can I make a quick announcement?
First, I want to commend City Council.
Come on, Marcus.
Huh?
Name and address, come on, Marcus.
Marcus Toole, 8 Crescent Avenue. First, I want to commend City Council for the unified ordinance. That's been a long time in coming. The difference it makes for Habitat, it allows us to put 9 units of housing on a property we own as opposed to 2 to 4. Understand that this was a game changer for a lot of the older neighborhoods around Statesboro because it will allow organizations like Habitat and developers to do infill construction in those neighborhoods and all the empty lots and places where houses have burned down or fallen down over the years. The way the old ordinance was written, you had to put 2 or 3 yachts together to build one house. And that's why all these neighborhoods filled up with empty spaces. So this is a huge thing for Statesboro. It's a huge thing for lots of other reasons, but this is one of the most important things this city council has done since I've been moved back to Statesboro 10 years ago. I mean, there's a lot of other things I've done, but this is a really big one. The second thing I want to say is that Habitat for Humanity just received a $9,000 grant to help the city of Statesboro to promote the bus service and to educate the public on how to use it. So it's basically $1,000 for administration and $8,000 for actually producing pamphlets and distributing them and getting public awareness that you do have a public bus service and how to use it and where it goes and stuff like that. So thank you very much. Today was a great day for City of Statesboro.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Anybody else want to get up and say some good stuff like that? I thought we'd give it a shot. With that being said, we'll move down to agenda item 25, which is our consideration of motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Anything beyond personnel?
Yeah, personnel.
Okay, anything else beyond that?
Legal.
And legal. Okay, personnel and legal matters. In accordance with OCGA 50-14-3B, is there a vote to go into executive session? Second. All in favor? Aye. All right.